vimanas that they talk about, flying machines. Now this is a temple in India. Now, what the heck is that thing? It's an old temple, and these are some of the plans that they had in ancient days for flying machines. Before there was planes, before there was jets, before there was anything remotely of a flying machine. And then they have these temples that kind of mimic some of that stuff that they would draw. It's pretty interesting. So I spent about 4 years or so researching this lost kingdom, and I found that the Indian government has been researching Dwarka since the 60s. They found an old temple that they built a building on, and then they cut the building down, they started digging up this temple. They found that they unearthed a massive city, twice the size of Manhattan. They took sonar, and you can kind of see some of it here. Twice the size of Manhattan underwater off the coast of Dwarka. And here's another shot right here. Okay. Mohenjo-Daro has very similar lines and structures. Mohenjo-Daro's Harappan civilization, kind of near Pakistan and North India a little bit, covering that whole area. One of the oldest civilizations. They discovered that, you know, they have these lines and the irrigation and the way that people lived. Very similar to what's underwater in Dwarka, the city of gold, the city of enlightenment. I like to call it Atlantis of the East, which I'm going to be getting into in just a second. They started doing some dives and dredging and found materials dating back thousands of years ago. Some of this is from 3,000, 2,000, 5,000, just depends how far they would research. As they started digging further and further and further, it got older and older and older. So they started finding stuff from early 100 AD. The current temple there right now is from about 100 AD. And they went into the water. They found remnants from 1,000. I mean, sorry, this is BC, 1,000 BC, then 3,000 BC, and then 5,000 BC. Sorry, these are, I screwed this up a little bit. And they found in the future, this could be true if time is cyclical, you know, we might have ended up doing that. And as they went further, it seemed to get older and older, older and older. Some say 20,000 years old from some of the wood that they found. It's pretty wild. This is the stuff that washes up on shore. They found artifacts from ancient castles and temples of the Mahabharata, an ancient text of the Great War. This is the stuff that just washes up on shore every day. And no one is doing anything about it. Nobody. Here's some pretty cool stuff. This is what sold me. The found artifacts that were talked about in the Mahabharata, right? They found these things that were in Dwarka. They found this thing on the left here. Looks kind of like a weird creature almost. This particular seal was a seal that they had to carry with them for living in the city of Dwarka. It was written in the Mahabharata, it was written in the Bhagavad Gita, astronomical mappings, and then they found it. And this represents 3 different animals. And this is a civilization that is mapped. I'm going to get into some more details. I feel like I want to just keep going, but hold on. Slow down, meditate. All right. This seal is also found in Harappan pottery. Harappan civilization that existed, again, Pakistan, North India, maybe in the water, kind of covering some of that area in the Arabian Sea. The government decides to put a full stop on the excavations and take everything they found and move it to Goa in 1999, which is across the country, all the way across the country, all the way on the southern tip of India. I don't know why. Still can't figure out why. There were too many attempts. There were many, many attempts to bring this research to light, to show that this place really existed. There was presentations made to the government to make Dwarka into an underwater maritime museum, to turn it into a preserved place and tourism place, but it was all ignored by the government. So this was pretty weird to me. And so I started emailing everyone that I could find out on the project, doing my research, and I was just like, this is crazy. What the heck? If this could prove to be one of the oldest civilizations known to man, and some of the technology and some of that stuff that's there, then why wouldn't you go dig more? And so no one would help me. And so, you know, some people actually emailed me and said they would not work with me under any circumstances, any. And so this started to feel really weird to me. And so what did I do? I just went there myself. And so I took a flight out there completely by myself, didn't even know what I was doing. It was one of those things that I just went from my heart, and I was like, I need to figure out, that's me, 35 pounds heavier, and figure this out. So I needed to discover more about Dwarka. When I got to Dwarka, I received an email from a company. I had emailed a company the day before I went to Dwarka and said, I feel lost going in there. Do you have any videos I can watch? Do you have any pictures I can look at? I have no clue where I'm going, like zero. And there's nothing online that is going to give me a reference point of where I am except for Google Maps. And even Google Maps doesn't have the roads because it's a village. So I received an email. And this is completely on a whim that I went to India. My daughter was 3 months from being born. I was just like, I'm going to go. Screw this. They were inspired by my story, and they sent a guy out to film me for 8 days while I was in India. And I did not plan this. So I was sitting here in my hotel, and the guy's like, let's go. And he didn't speak English, but I tried to figure out how to do it. But he filmed me for 8 days, and I'm like, what the heck? We soon discovered that no one actually in Dwarka could help us. We discovered that all the locals, everyone that we were talking to, no one could actually help us and tell us where the excavations were, what was going on, what was discovered. Nobody. It was the weirdest thing. It was the most bizarre thing ever. It was like as if it never happened. So I went out, and I went out to the ocean, and I started finding stuff myself. I found stuff just like you saw, washed up on shore. I found these pieces of wall, ancient building walls, washed up on shore, as if nothing ever happened. It led me onto this wild goose chase between 3 cities. I had to interview government officials. I interviewed deans of universities. I was trekking to different islands and discovering this stuff for myself. When I came back, I did some more research and found that Dwarka existed in many ancient texts, like I mentioned, with astronomical mappings. Dr. Narahari Achar, who used to, he worked at University of Memphis, I want to say, or Missouri, mixing the M's up here. But he was a dean there, and he used archaeoastronomy software, and it was dated exactly to 3067 BC. The exact date, the exact month. In fact, here it is, mapped out using archaeoastronomy software. October 14th, 3067, there was a solar eclipse, and Antares was retrograde looping around Mars. 3067 BC was the time of this great war that took place in Dwarka, that submerged the land eventually. I also found 52 references to Vimanas across various different scriptures. What are Vimanas again? They mention Vimanas as flying above water, underwater, disappearing, appearing. I don't know. I've interviewed Michael Cramo about this, and he says there are 3 different kinds of Vimanas: spiritual, internal, and physical. Actual machines. Here's a picture from Ellora Caves in India. What the heck is that? And why is everyone looking at him? And what the heck? What's going on over there? It's pretty interesting stuff. The Ramayana bridge that I showed you, Rama Setu Bridge, Adam's Bridge, that connects Sri Lanka and India. It was said that Ramayana flew in his Pushpak Vimana over the land. It literally says he flew over the land in his Pushpak Vimana. It's pretty cool stuff. Now I know this is borderline ancient alien stuff, but this is all written. This isn't just made up. This is written with archaeological finds, with astronomical mappings. It was said that Krishna shot down his enemy's Vimana with a ground-to-air missile. That's the best way you can explain what they were talking about in the Mahabharata. It was a ground-to-air missile that shot it, exploded it, and this machine fell into the sea, the Arabian Sea. Salva chose this is from a text, I'm just going to read the interpretation. Salva chose a Vimana that could not be destroyed by the Devas, Asuras, humans, Gandharvas, Uragas, or the Rakshasas. These are all different types of people and clans, I guess, and tribes at the time. They could travel anywhere he wished, and that would terrify the Varashinis. From his excellent Vimana, he threw down a torrent of projectiles. A fierce vortex arose and blanketed the entire area with billowing dust. That's from the Bhagavata Purana. Lord Krishna first destroyed King Salva's great weapon by discharging his own missile, described as being bright as the sun in the sky. He then disabled Salva's Vimana completely by releasing an overwhelming power of destructive missiles, and eventually Salva's wondrous Vimana burst into pieces and fell into the sea. Again, in the Bhagavata Purana. The amount of evidence proving that Dwarka was a real place led me to only do one thing. Create a documentary. So I went out there, like I said, this film was here, and I'm like, okay, I got 8 days of footage. Why? I had no clue why at the time. This was about 2.5 years ago. But here I was with 8 days of footage and all these discoveries I had made, and I was like, I have to do something with this. I have to get this information out. So I created a documentary. And so it's called Dwarka, Atlantis of the East. And it is a documentary based on the findings and some of the things that I found. I've mentioned a lot of it here. It's really, really cool. I found some amazing stuff. It's about my journey and discovery of what may be one of the oldest civilizations known to man. I'm going to be getting into more research around that in just a second.
Since I was about 5 years old, I used to always question who we are as humans, where we've come from, and where we're going. It's that calling that led me to go and discover an ancient submerged city off the coast of India. The city is called Dwarka.
He said that this is the Lost Kingdom.
The artifacts I found in Dwarka were not just fiction. I knew I had to go deeper.
They started excavating in the 1960s, and they continued it until the 90s, and then they put a full stop on it. If this is true, why wouldn't you excavate more and get as much information as you can?
I emailed every person I could find associated with the archaeological digs that they did. I couldn't get a single lead to follow up with me. What are they trying to hide?
The Vedic histories tell of a human presence going back millions or hundreds of thousands of years.
As I dug in more, I found references to Dwarka and references to flying machines, or what are commonly referred to as Vimana in the ancient text. These books describe a war in which 4 million soldiers are said to have died in 18 days. How did these authors of ancient India so brilliantly describe rocketry, ray weapons, flying machines, and highly sophisticated aircraft? We are ancient explorers, and we're gonna find the truth.